Good morning. I'd like to kick off our transitioning seminar this morning. I am Sergeant First Class Holland. I am the OSSN NCOIC, and today we have the great opportunity to have Mr. Cesar Nader to come speak with us. He's retired U.S. Marine Corps, triple majors in business administration, managerial accounting, computer information systems, a double minor in finance and economics. He's also a linguist. He's a 4.4 Spanish, and at one point in time did some work with French as well. He's a tracker and logistician. He has 2 combat tours, 10 years as an enlisted man and 10 years as an officer. So looking at that, he has a deep breadth of experience to give you guys some tactics and some strategies for transitioning away from the armed services and into the civilian sector. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand things over to Cesar and let him go.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Hoorah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your attendance. I know it's a busy schedule that you guys have, and I appreciate being here more than you know. And I say this going back probably from 20 years career in the military, wondering when I came in, what would I do when I got out? One of the first things that my recruiter said is always have an exit strategy for everything, whether it was combat or peacetime. And as I went through boot camp, our senior drill instructor brought in 2 big binders of the stuff he had done in the military. And he said, none of this will count if you don't remember that we all have to get out at a certain point in time. And so with that in my mind, I figured I'd do my probably 4 years, and I would move on to something else. But as things would turn out, I made it a career in the military. I did 10 years enlisted. I did 10 years as an officer. I was a tracker, amphibious tracks. And then I did some time as a logistician. I did linguist work. It got pulled out for interesting missions down in Colombia and other places, which I really enjoyed a lot. And throughout that time, all I ever thought about is just doing my job, like we all do. All we ever want to do is just tell me what I need to do, train me for it, and then you go and do the best you can. And we all have that spirit in the military of that teamwork. And those of us who understand leadership always want to make sure everyone gets credit where it's due. One of those principles of leadership that we talk about. And with that regard, we always put ourselves last. And as you grow in ranks, the first thing you do all the time, whether it's the chow line in the field or taking care of the troops, is they go first. And the longer you're in the military, the more you put yourself sort of last, because you have to do the work to make sure everybody's taken care of. The mission is accomplished. Everybody is happy, and everything, all the gear is back in the rear, accounted for and secure. Then you can finally, around midnight, you can go back home if you're married to your wife and kids and call it a night. Wake up the next morning earlier, be there before everybody gets back, and you do that consistently over a period of time. So I share that with you only to let you know that time flies. And all you can think about when you're doing this, okay, I will get time to do this when I get to TAPS, right? TAPS class is supposed to be the place where we say, okay, finally, it's about me. But even then, you still find a challenge because you cannot schedule TAPS on time because you got missions you have to take care of. Especially here, as I understand, you guys are always on call, always trying to go to the next mission, most likely understaffed, over-missioned, and trying to figure out how to catch up to all the requirements, prioritize. And everybody's in the same loop. And so you never really get to that TAP class or that ETAP. And even when you do, what do you get at TAPS? What do they teach you at TAPS? And there's no wrong answers, but please participate because it'll make it more fun. What do you get at TAPS? Anybody has done TAPS here yet? What did you get at TAPS? And forgive me, but I got to make sure that I'm going to put the mic over here because we have to make sure we do this rock star thing and keep it close to your chatterbox.
Yeah, I had a resume writing class, and that was it.
Great. Now, in most of this TAPS focuses on military transition. The VA, if you're smart enough, you go to that class a couple of times. I did it 4 times. I did TAPS 4 times over 10 years. People think I'm crazy because I started planning retirement the moment I got commissioned as an officer. I had 10 years in the military. I had reached E7 in 7.5 years. I had ran so fast that I figured, okay, I got here. Now what? I had what I believe achieved a great position in the military as enlisted, E7. I don't want to be E8. To me, E7 was the top of the hill, and I respect my E8s and E9s. But at that point, you're really managing problems, not people. I always enjoyed managing people, and I think being in E7 was the epitome, and I think First Sergeant Holland can attest to that. It's the joy of that we look forward to. We don't do it for the money. We just want to really have people doing the right things at the right time, putting them in the right places. As Jim Collins says, it's not only about putting the right people on the bus and getting the wrong people off the bus, but putting the right people in the right seats. And I'll talk about some books that I think you guys will find very helpful in your transition process. But back to the point of ETAPS, you get your VA, you get some classes on resume. If you're lucky, you get some great TAPS on attire maybe. But most of the TAPS is really to transition you from the military and all the paperwork required for that into a civilian lifestyle. Now, every service is different, but it takes a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks to train a civilian to become a military person. Minimum. On the officer side, at least for the Marine Corps, it takes 6 months to make a basic infantry platoon commander, what they call a provisional rifle platoon commander, an officer that's not even going through their primary school. That's another 6 weeks to 3 months to 6 months, depending on the job. How long does it take to transition out? What kind of training do you get? If you're lucky, you get a 1-week TAP class. Now, that's not a bad thing, considering that in the past, way past, there was nothing. So it's a good resource to have, but how much can you transition in 1 week? And remember, given the issue that you still have to do all the things you're doing, because it's not like you take time off, because you want to try to take that terminal leave in time to look for a job. And you're supposed to try to find a job in 3 months. So it's a real challenge. The uphill battle never stops. And so since I retired last June, I decided to go around anywhere where fellow warriors would want to know and hear the real things that are concerning them about transition. And why do I feel that I'm qualified for this? I'm not a professional speaker. I'm not a certified facilitator. I didn't take classes in PowerPoint presentations on how to. What I'm going to tell you is everything that I put in place. My 10 years of transition plan. I will ask you to challenge me with questions that you have and let me know what are your true concerns. And as I was talking to First Sergeant Holland earlier, I will share with you stories of people who had a great plan. And you know them. There are people who have 2, 3, 4, 5 credentials ready to be pulled out for the next job. But then when they get out and they want to get that job, everything changed. It's like hitting the first day in the combat zone. And you realize, okay, the gear's not where it was supposed to be. The people are not where they're supposed to be. Something is always, not right. Murphy is always learning in the shadows. And so imagine just getting out. You no longer have the support of big Army, big Air Force, big Navy, big Marine Corps, any service to back you up. And you can't go to the admin section and say, hey, I need orders for housing. Or you're in overseas, Japan. Where do I get my international license? You have always a sponsor that's going to transition you. Civilian world, guess what? Everybody for themselves. And so my experience in transitioning comes from having done both enlisted officer time, having gone from coming into this country in 1990, 18 March, with $200 in my pocket. At 19 years old, I was studying pre-med in Ecuador. That's where I grew up. And I was born in California. I left when I was 8 years old. That's the background of that side. My mom didn't want us to grow up here. She felt like we needed to go to something like, I guess, Utah, but outside of the United States. Somewhere shielded from all the influences of, I used to like the group Kiss, and so I had the little dolls. And so she thought that was a bad influence back then. So I think that might have motivated the move to Ecuador. So we moved to Ecuador when I was 8. I came back when I was 19. My grandfather said, I'll give you $200 if you can find a ticket. If you can make money to find a ticket. And that's when I first started my business. I got white T-shirts, I ironed on some decals, and I went to sell them to family and friends and started getting money. I went and got some candy at the store and resold it. Typical entrepreneurship, right? You know, the middleman was always, you know, there's nothing wrong if you can sell a good to somebody else. Find the need, get the resource, and put it in place. So at 19, I came here, $200 in my pocket, landed in Palm Springs, got a job at Alpha Beta bagging groceries, and then got a second job at Arby's cleaning the bathrooms because I wasn't very good in English. I didn't have anything but a high school degree from another country, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. So I worked 2 jobs from 6 in the morning to about 1 at Alpha Beta, and then from about 3 to 11 p.m. in Arby's. And I did that for 6 months. Around October time frame, I stopped at a recruiter's office. I went, of course, to the Air Force, and I said, hey, I want to fly. Everybody wants to fly. I said, well, son, you can't fly because your eyes are not good, but I got some other things for you. I said, okay. Now I went to the Army. He said, I got a lot of stuff that I can offer you, and he laid it all out. I went to the Navy. I said, anything but boats. I get seasick very easily. And so I'm very privileged to have a representative from each of the services here because it was really a great opportunity for me to see what they offered. Then there was a door in the back. The Marine Corps guy had a camouflage door. He looked isolated, grumpy. I certainly didn't know what the Marine Corps was at the time. Walked in and I said, hey, what do you got to offer me? He nearly shut the door in my face and said, come back when you have something to offer the Corps. Of course, great sales pitch, right? The rest is history. I did 20 years in the Corps. In that time, not only did I try to maximize my efforts as an enlisted guy by trying to get meritoriously promoted to almost every rank except E1, E2. E2 was not meritoriously promoted. But then I became an officer after my experience in Somalia. And as I was talking to First Sergeant Holland, I realized that if you want to make a change, you better put yourself in those shoes first. And so I became an officer. I went to college. I realized there was a system to getting a degree. And I started with computer information systems, and I started arranging these college credits, things that I didn't understand at first. And I added another major, and another major, and then a minor, and a minor. And in the time that it would have taken me to get a degree in 4 years, I got 3 undergraduate and 2 minors at Norwich University in Vermont, which was a great institution. Became a logistician, went to Japan, did Korea, all those great things. Then somebody had the bright idea of sending me to a master's program at the Naval Postgraduate School. I did that for 18 months. I got 2 masters, one in logistics and the other one in business management. Went to headquarters Marine Corps, did my tour there. I was the head of language testing and did that for 2 years. And again, all this time trying to transition out. Never really getting an answer. I talked to everybody that would get out. I've talked to over 150 people, both enlisted officers all the way up to the ranks of general, and asked them, how did you do it? What was the key to your success? And I found a common trend in all of them, and I'm hoping that this presentation comprises that common trend. Now, this is a general presentation, and each of these slides that you will see also have a workshop in each of them. There's a workshop for a resume, for how to dress, for how to do the interview. I found out in the process that it took me to retire, the last 6 months, I activated this thing called my LinkedIn profile. And I had a mission to try to get 100 LinkedIn contacts every month. This is not a Facebook thing. If you've done LinkedIn, it's a whole different dynamics. This is a professional network for business-oriented people. And if you're not on LinkedIn, you should be. Because the reason I'm here today is because of LinkedIn. I met Lieutenant Colonel Stevens through LinkedIn and through some job requirements, and this has all come full circle to now be able to be here for you guys and hopefully provide you with the answers that you need. In the 6 months I had LinkedIn, my personal and professional network didn't do for me what LinkedIn did. I got 3 referrals from my personal and professional network. Over a 20-year career, had done a good job in my opinion, had always made my bosses look great, and I had 3 referrals. LinkedIn gave me over 200 phone interviews. I had 47 sit-down interviews throughout the country and 11 job offers on the table by the time I was on terminal leave 3 months before I retired. I'm not making this up. I had done a matrix of all of those offers by 11 different criteria as to what weighted average would I give these offers to understand clearly what I needed to know when selecting a career move. Because the first thing that we do when we get out is to say, well, what should I do? Well, what pays the most money? Or what am I good at? Or what do I want to do? And so in that process, I also realized that there's the most important things that you have to think about when transitioning. And you will see them on a slide. Before you get out, you need to understand 3 things and put them in the right priority. Talk to your spouse, talk to your significant other, talk to your loved ones, talk to your family, and ask them to tell you what they think, because they will know you better than you do. You will hear from your circles what you think you should do because you see somebody succeed. You know? Joe Smacatelli, he got out, he was an E5, he got a $150,000 job in Afghanistan. I want to do that. I personally didn't. I mean, again, because my priorities were different. Some people would love to go to Afghanistan or to Montana and make six figures. But the 3 things you have to remember and prioritize are job satisfaction, location, and salary. You do that, and you will be successful. It is not the same for everyone. And I will guarantee you, I've met, I'll give you an example. I met a full-bird colonel who took a job for mid to mid-high 5 figures. Let's just say 70,000. He was the commander of a 2,500 Marine outfit. He took a job at a warehouse. At a warehouse. I won't tell you the company, but I'm sure you ordered products from it. Right outside of Dulles Airport, there's a warehouse for this company. And he took a job because he lived very close by. I asked him, I said, why are you taking that job? He said, Cesar, I'm happy. I couldn't understand why a guy who has reached so much in his career, the commander of one of the most prestigious schools in the Marine Corps, had offers from everyone, took what some of us would consider a low-paying job for an 06. He was doing less than he was when he was in active duty. I have another friend of mine, who moved to a part of the country where I don't think that there's enough people there to actually qualify for a city or a town. To him, it was the most beautiful place on earth. And he had 60 acres of wooded, pristine hunting land with a pond, freshwater pond, and he thought that was great. I said, but what are you going to do for work? He says, I don't care. What I want to do is I want to go to where I know I'll be happy, and I'll figure that later. It's amazing to me to know that there's some of us out there who have such conviction about where they want to be that they know they'll get a job. I mean, we can all get a job, don't get me wrong. There's no doubt about it. Our skills are such that just by the leadership curriculum that we have will allow us to walk into any place, get the lowest paying job in that outfit, and within 6 months, you will be asked to be the assistant manager or the manager, guaranteed. Because your ability to organize, plan, execute, and evaluate is a foreign concept to most of the population out there. To us, it's second nature. We do it without thinking. But those phases of implementation are foreign. We comprise 1% of the American population, the military. And out of that 1%, few of us go past 4 years. It depends on the service. Some services are senior heavy, some are by nature a young force because they have to eat their young, keep chewing up, keep it young so we can keep the injuries low. But all of us have a certain level of skill, have experiences that most people don't understand. Just the ability to interface with other cultures is a key factor in human relations. And so forgive me for taking so long to just initiate this workshop, this seminar, but I wanted to make sure you understand from the beginning that there's no wrong answer for when you transition. The question is, will you be able to, one, prioritize, and then have a plan in place? And this is what this is all about. What are the things that you need to think about as you transition from the military? We obviously know that transitioning into a new career can be a challenging and daunting undertaking, and anybody who says it isn't is not prepared. Because unless you have been out there and you have held a job for at least 2 years, you really don't know what's waiting for you. We don't know what's waiting for us. We can only plan and try to execute that plan. But as we get to the evaluation phase, you will find out that a lot of people transition to 5 different jobs before they settle into the job they truly wanted to have from the beginning. Because they go through the struggle of figuring out, what should I do? What did my friends do? What will people think? And what's going to make me happy? Sometimes we never get to that question, and so we never answer. What's truly going to make us happy is different for everyone. And please stop me at any time if you have any questions. And use the mic, and I'll answer right away, because this is not a one-way conversation, but I want to make sure that you capture some of the essence of what I went through for 10 years to try to understand how to effectively transition. And now, after starting my 3rd company, and again, I'm an entrepreneur by heart, so I knew I always wanted to work for myself. So having started companies throughout my Marine Corps career, and now as I got out, I started my last company last June. And with that company, we have 4 employees throughout the United States. And we're very happy to be giving services to both the government and the private sector in, no doubt, language and culture immersion. Why would I do anything else? That's what I love. So, again, I say this to you from the experience that I went through. Why did I do those 47 interviews? I'll tell you that in a minute. But it was more of a training opportunity for me. And I encourage you to do as many job interviews as you can, even if you don't want the job. It's like training for combat. If you don't do it, you just never get to know how you're going to react in the real thing. So take the time to go through the process, even if you decide not to take the jobs, because it will train you for the real interview. When you step in, you'll be so in control and in charge that it will be second nature. No doubt you'll get the job. The first interview, the first 5, 10, 15 should be nothing but training. These are the topics that we're going to cover. Obviously, where do I start? I got my handy-dandy laser pointer here. And then a planning timeline based on where you are. Some of you may be closer than others. Some may not be there yet. But again, some will call me crazy, but I started 10 years ago. And what I mean by that is I actually called Lucas Group, which is a recruiter, and said, hey, listen, I'm about to transition. What do you need from me to make sure I'm ready? Well, he goes, first of all, how far are you from? I said, 10 years. They hung up the phone. I wonder why. I called him again, and I called every year to Lucas Group. He's a retired, not retired, he is a former captain. That was, I forget his name now, it's been so long. But I got to the point where he figured, you know what, he's going to humor me. And in fact, I called him before I retired. I said, hey, so I'm 6 months out. He goes, great, Cesar, finally we can talk. It's odd to me that people won't talk to you unless you're 6 months or 3 months out. That was frustrating, because I've been waiting for 10 years. So, in Cameron Brooks, which is a great company that selects their candidates, you can't go to Cameron Brooks and say, I want you to represent me to get a job. I was interested to find out, what does it take to be one of Cameron Brooks' candidates? And I found out they're very prestigious, they're very dedicated. They took me through the wickets. I got to be one of their candidates. And through the process, I realized that I wasn't really going to take any jobs that they were going to find me. They were going to guarantee me a job, no doubt about it, because they prepare you, they train you for it. But the truth is that my heart was set on entrepreneurship, and I would have been wasting their times if I had kept going through the interview process. Because they were going to take it to a big, sort of like a dating event with companies. And you're guaranteed to have at least 4 offers from that based on their statistics. And so you have to decide that evening which offer you're going to take for the next day. So if you ever want to really get it with the best, Cameron Brooks is one of those companies that really does a great job. I talked to Orion. Orion also hung up the phone on me because I called them again. If you're within 6 months, 10 years is just something. But to me, it was fascinating to find out, what do I have to, I kept thinking about that senior drill instructor. We all have to get out at some point. Whether you do 4, 10, 15, 20, or 30, everybody gets out. And the question is, what are you going to do when that time comes? So where do you start? For me, this was interesting because one of my favorite authors, as I already mentioned, is Jim Collins. And Jim Collins says, first who, then what? We do it seamlessly in the military. We have a team, and you've been in these teams. When you had a great team, like I was meeting the camera crew here, Betty, Bill, and Reggie, I asked her, what do they do? And they were telling me about some of the things they do and how excited they seem to be working together. And it's evident to me that they have a great team. The team is together, so doing the what is easy. And so we do it very easily in the military. We have the who. We've put together the right team. We train them. We capacitate people, and we have the right levels, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the staff sections and all of the elements of the force that have to go forward. And then we do the what. But when we transition, we try to figure what before we figure out who we are, what do we want. It has to be a me question. You have to flip the switch as you're transitioning, because you have to ask yourself, who's transitioning? Me. I'm no longer taking care of troops. We get so good at taking care of others that we totally neglect ourselves. And we do it because we are so ingrained that we must be selfless. It is part of our faith. Whether you're Christian or whether you're any other faith, we still have that ingrained as a human being. We want to put others first. Because somebody always needs more than what you have. We can always think we're blessed for what we have. And so it becomes a question of flipping the switch and say, okay, who am I? What do I really like? What are my 3 priorities? Location, salary, job satisfaction. Job satisfaction includes, obviously, growth, upward movement, if that's what you're seeking. You have to consider that in the difference between job satisfaction versus salary. Because you can go for the highest salary and fail at it miserably because you tried so hard to reach the very top of that edge and you realize you were drowning. Versus coming in at a warehouse guy level and be offered the regional manager position within 3 months of your job because you made so many improvements. You're the star. It's like trying to go back to basic training now. You'd be the undergrad. We all would be. So keep that in mind as you distinguish salary and job satisfaction. So transitioning. When the transition is key, because for most of us, that question is never evident early on. Some of us think we're going to stay 4 years. I thought I would only do 4 years. And lo and behold, I did not only 20, but I went both enlisted and then I went to the dark side. So it was interesting to me to look back and think, wow, it actually retired on 18 March 2011, 21 years to the day from the day I landed in the United States with my $200. And I wanted to make that a very important date for me because it was relevant to say, yes, the American dream is alive. Yes, it can be done. And the question really is about how do we hone in on the right implementation plan. So once you figure out when you want to transition, then the question is, what? Do you want to go to work? Do you really want to retire? And there's only one category in retirement. That's my friend, retired Colonel Rhino. I'll just leave it at that, Rhino. He is down south. Let's say he's in somewhere by Hilton Head. He loves to wake up in the morning, takes his 2 dogs for a walk, go fishing, come back, watch the news, and read. And that's his day. I think he does it 365 days a year. He loves it. I tried retirement for about a month. It didn't work. I was annoying my wife. I had switched the furniture about 3 times from every room. I was starting to give her a plan of the day. and she said, you either go to work or start another company, but you need to go. And so in my kids love the plan of the day. I got 5 kids. But my wife is like, okay, you're retired. The only thing I kept hearing when I heard retired was tired. And so I had to get back to do something. Luckily, I had a few things that I wanted to do, but there's only one category in retire. And that is somebody who decides that they just want to go do something without generating further income, without being the job. Sometimes you can get passive income from different opportunities that you can have, and that's where it falls under the entrepreneur side we'll talk about in a minute. But truly retired people are those who just want to relax and do nothing but enjoy the mornings and the evenings and do that in cycle. I certainly couldn't. You probably won't either. And then, of course, a third category is study. Now, if you want to go to work, you got to decide, do you want to go to government, GS employment, which is an easy transition for us because we figured, well, they're going to need us there. Do you want to go private sector? And the private sector would include contracting work as well as private companies. Nonprofit, which is a whole different ball of wax. You make it in the nonprofit world, you'll make it anywhere. There's nothing harder than trying to work for an institution that is always seeking resources. They're always resource short. Sound familiar? That's our life. In everything we do, we're always short. One bolt, one meal, one truck. And so nonprofit is an excellent way to challenge yourself if you're seeking leadership opportunities to grow. That goes back to figuring out what you want to do first and generating credentials as you grow through the process. I have a workshop that really entails all of these pieces here. And again, this is just a general workshop that allows us to get into some of these pieces. But there's more detailed work to be done in each of these things. And of course, the last one is entrepreneurship. That's the easiest place to start a company is the United States of America. It takes literally 10 minutes. You can go on any host of websites and start your company. And by tomorrow morning, you could be knocking on somebody's door saying, I am company X, whether it's limited liability company, sole proprietorship, S corporation, corporation. You can start your company and do business tomorrow morning. And you can do it actually while you're in service because it doesn't preclude you, as long as it doesn't impede you from your official duties and it's not a conflict of interest and you have the permission and the support of your senior leadership. But entrepreneurship is a great way to do it on your own. It's not for everybody, but it is something that some people shy away from because they don't know if they can actually start it. The hardest thing about entrepreneurship, though, is to stay on it. If you don't have a plan, if you don't know what you're doing. When you ask me, what companies do you have? Well, I have 3 companies. It's what I love to do, so it's not really work. If I asked you, what do you want to do? And I assure you, you're good at one thing. Everybody's good at one thing. And one of the things that I have come across as I interview people and ask them, why do you think you're the best qualified for this? I realize their passion for it. In some cases, they are the experts at that X thing. In a lot of times we define experts by what? How do you define an expert? There's no wrong answer. Mike?
Vast knowledge.
How do you define expert?
Well, basically, it's someone who has vast knowledge in whatever field he's an expert in.
Excellent. How do you define an expert? That's another good answer.
I think it applies more to what you just mentioned, someone being passionate about something. Because if they have a real desire to understand that, even if they don't have all the knowledge, they'll find it.
I will also add to those that a true expert is someone who has gone through the process of making all of the mistakes in that specific field and has come to the conclusion that now they're able to really map out steps 1 through 10 of that X thing and know what the outcome may be. And we see it whether we're parents, whether we're in the military. You get to a point in your career where it's not so much that you went to the school to learn what you were supposed to do, right? The greatest school of leadership is the military, because you get to practice more than you get to sit around and learn the theory. That's why I enjoy going to college. When you try to make sense of how did I get 3 undergraduate degrees, it's not because I'm smart. It's because I was there. I was an E7 in college. I had been in the military for about 7 years. And so it was very easy to look at the theory and look at, well, we've done so many things now that it's easy to figure out how to get to the goal of that problem scenario. So I would ask you to add to your list of definitions of expert the idea that an expert is he or she who has experienced enough challenges in their life in a certain situation that they're able now to provide the guidance, the mentor, the leadership, or the actual steps to have someone else succeed, or to actually be a consultant or that expert that's me, to say, here's what's going to work and here's what's not going to work. Because we tend to be very good at analyzing our failures. You ever notice when we do something wrong, whether it's getting a ticket or you lost money in the stock market or you did something? I'm sure you can relate to some experience in your life where you analyze every step of that situation, where you decided that you thought you were going to be successful, you went through it, something happened, you started, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Oh, why did I do that? How many times you said that? But we don't analyze success as much. You succeed? Yes! On to the next thing, right? Who's the man? Right? Oh, here, I did it, so let me show you how to do it. So balance that in the process of deciding what you're good at, and just know that you are good at something. The question is, do you have the courage to identify that in yourself and go for it? Questions? Comments? We are at, it's 9:10. We'll go for 10 more minutes, take a break. On the study track, we discussed retire, but on the study track, there are 3 things that you have to decide if you want to go to school. One, if you want to go to a traditional academic path, go get a college degree if you haven't done so. And this is more for our fellow service members who are just getting out maybe at 4, or who have gone through their career and decided that they just didn't have time for college. And I will tell you that this economy, this transition time, is the greatest time to get your education. Because the competition is high when unemployment is high, because you got more qualified people competing for less jobs. And so employers have their pick. They can choose who they want, and they can really play different options. The options are on their side. So focusing on getting trained, certified, and with a diploma, whatever that certificate may be, is now. And if you have them, don't think you don't need more. You can always use more education, more certification. PMP certification, Program Management Professional. Level 3 acquisitions, if you're going to go the GS routes. Certifications on the civilian sector for specialties like logistics, for accounting, management. All these things are out there. And the greatest thing is that our military gives us all of these opportunities for free. Whether it's through tuition assistance, whether it's through your GI Bill, or whether it is by having just the time to go do it. Now, some of our jobs don't allow for that continuing process, but if you want it, you can find a way. Another study track is the technical track. Some people want to get a technical certification to be a certain type of technician, whether it is an operator of a crane. Simple as that. Maybe that's what you love to do. To a more high-level certification on the technical side, whether it would be in computer information systems or hardware, or doing what Bill does, which probably requires a lot more experience, more than just certification. But to get a certification in something like web design, certain things like that, that don't require a traditional degree, but still require some sort of formal certification through an accredited institution. And finally, just basic certification of things like what I mentioned. PMP, acquisitions level 3. If you're a linguist, having a TSSCI is already a certification that puts you in a category, a salary category, that cannot be bumped down. And we'll talk about salary and how sometimes if you are going to retire and stay to retirement, how that affects how employers see you. And you should never let that be a factor in the decision for salary. And we'll talk about that. I have a whole workshop on how to, play the game of the salary question. And just remember this rule. The first person to talk about money loses. Okay? Now, planning timeline. I told you 10 years, and that's probably really a little obsessive. Most people don't really have that kind of time in their hands. Maybe I was just too lazy, had nothing better to do. But most people have maybe 2 years if they're really planning. A year, 6 months. Some of us only get 3 months. Some of us really have to think, wow, got to go. I got to really get going. I got to start doing the staff thing. Some of them do it on their way out, literally, while they're on terminal leave, because it's part of the checkout process. You have to get it signed. So the first thing, do a reverse plan. And this goes along with your budget, which we'll talk later. You have to figure out, at what point do I want to start X? If you're not retiring, if you're doing a job, if you're going to go work, or if you're going to go study, you want to have that reverse planning factor to tell yourself, how early do I have to plan all these phases of implementation in order for me to ensure that on July 1st or on May 1st or on August 1st, I execute this plan as I intended it. So have a reverse plan. Know the difference between military and business timeline. There is a timeline for us to transition from the military. But there is a business timeline, if you will. I call it the business timeline. It's more of a personal, professional timeline that you have to figure out, because you're going to have to step into the role of, now you're still the head of household, or maybe you're still the breadwinner. Maybe your wife and yourself are both working, or maybe you're single and you still have to produce money to pay your bills. Those don't go away. So, but that's not the plan that you really go through in TAPS per se. I mean, there's some factors that help you out, but because everybody is different, there is no tailored TAP that allows you to do what we can do here, which is, hey, Cesar, I'm thinking about doing this. Tell me something about it. An interactive TAPS class that allows you to inject your personal needs into a class of maybe 30 or 50 people. It doesn't work that way. And you still go home with the same questions that you did after the TAPS. You still don't get any. You're hoping that you get something out of it. You went to it because you figured, okay, they're going to tell me what I need to do, because you haven't been out there. You want somebody who's been out there. Wouldn't it be better if you had every single TAP as a requirement to have retired people from either your unit or your service to come and tell you what would they do different? What can they tell you to make sure you don't do when you go through it? You don't get that unless you knock on the door of your CO and ask, talk to your senior enlisted advisors, talk to your friends, call your buddies who just got out, and tell them to cut the nonsense. And listen, I get it. You got to put the smile. Oh, it's great, man. Getting out is the best thing that ever happened to me. I'll tell you a story. I was the education officer in Japan, and this young enlisted guy came and said, sir, I'm getting out. I'm ready to get out, and my dad's got a great job lined up for me at State X. I'm going to be changing light bulbs on the runway. I said, well, are you sure that's a lot? Oh, sir, this is great, and that's a lot of money because, this is very important. It's high risk. Okay, I said, well, let's go through your budget and all this stuff. And at the end of it, he realized that there was really no plan behind it. It was just the idea that somebody had offered him some glamorous job. He thought it would be cool. If you say it enough times, you start believing that your plan is actually actionable. No pun intended. It's amazing. If you talk to some of the people that probably got out, they'll tell you in the first 3 months, oh, I'm doing awesome, man. This is the greatest thing I ever did. I'm just kicking boxes out here in the sandbox and don't have to worry about formations. And then 6 months later, you talk to them and say, well, it's a little bit difficult. All of a sudden, the tone changes because they failed to plan accordingly, whether it was through priorities, reverse planning, their business timeline, assessing what they're really going to do. The best people who transition are those who really don't have to say a whole lot. They're not the ones that are always saying, oh, I got this great job waiting for me. Beware of people that say, waiting for me. Nothing is waiting for you. And I tell you, that's the hardest thing about being an employer and trying to hire people is when I get calls and say, hey, sir, I really need a job right now. What do you got? And I tend to answer every single email of everybody who wants to apply for jobs that I post. I reviewed over 500 resumes of people from enlisted all the way up to full-bird colonels. I could tell you a couple of things about resumes. But I'll tell you something more important about this. It breaks my heart that I don't have enough jobs to give because people out there are saying, hey, I really need to get a job right now. And I understand their frustration because we're military. You know, we have this balance that we're kind of steering towards the edge, and we're like, I need to get another job so that cliff doesn't look like it's going to, you know, the ground is not giving up on me. I want to be able to step into something else. So you're throwing out there all these hooks to see what bites. And all along, you know what you should have done. You know you'd be happier on that 300-acre piece of land somewhere in Arizona, living the dream life. Not worrying about what your friends say about what status you got. Oh, what, you got $200,000 job. How'd you do that? What they don't tell you is that it's a 1-year or 2-year contract, and it is on the other side of the world, and that you do have to leave your family. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying it's for some of us, not for all of us. But if your heart is on that 300-acre piece of land, don't deny your nature. Don't deny your nature. You're going to get everything that you need from either your tab class, the internet, or people who you can talk to about jobs. What I hope to give you here is the reality check. That if you really want to transition properly, you first have to ask the who what it wants, what he or she wants. And go from there. And then decide what to do. Get a planner. If I can take the minutes that I have before the break to show you, and I'll take it out of my calendar. I've kept this calendar because I don't want you, nothing that I'm telling you right now is going to be the fiction of my imagination. This is the schedule for January, before I retired. If you flip, and I don't know if we can see this, this is the schedule for February. This is my Get a Planner plan. This is March. And if you look at 18 March, what does 18 March say right there? Can you read that for me?
It says ceremony and busy day.
Retirement ceremony. 18 March 2011. And all of a sudden, April started getting busy again. That was my month. Remember I said I took a month of retirement? Oh, it was awful. It actually got busier. Good, Betty? My goal in showing you this is I'm not telling you anything on this presentation that I didn't do and that didn't work. Now, there's a million ways to do it. But I will share with you, and I ask you to consider me your personal resource. Anytime you have a question, anytime you want to ask something, please let me know. I'll put my network at your service, and I put myself at your service because I'm a fellow warrior just like you, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. I don't want you to take that step and wonder what you should have done. And I'll be happy to come here as many times as I can to go through these other workshops if you want a specific workshop that you want to go through. But get a plan. And stick to it. At first you may not think it's useful. Some of you may do the Google Calendar. Maybe that's more effective for you. Maybe you're more web savvy. I'm still old school, you know, green monster with the check boxes. There's something about it that just makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something on paper. I always keep thinking about the day where Armageddon is going to come and all those iPhones are going to go down, and I'm going to have my green Monster. Well, I don't have a cargo pocket anymore. I'll have my green Monster, and I'll be like, okay, good. Tomorrow, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. Well, everybody's going to be just kind of, where's my iPhone? I got my life in there. By the way, my wife loves iPhones, and I just tend to be an Android guy, so we kind of have that debate all the time. Thank you for Saran. But it's a great resource. If you're more tech savvy, use that. If you're more old school, just get something like a planner and just put it all, lay it out. I still do this, even though people send me calendar appointments. I have a virtual assistant from India that I try to keep things. I'm supposed to let her do stuff, but I just can't. I still have to talk to people and get with people. So it's hard to just relinquish that. I don't know, that I think I'm still a PFC at heart. I'm still an E2. I don't know. There's something about being an E2 that you don't have to, just got to get the job done. You know, not be in charge, just get the job done. I like to get the job done. Sorry for that digression. Schedules and meetings. Have a schedule for everything. And set up meetings, as many meetings as you can to talk to people. You have a wealth of resource just in this building. You see people walking around. Any of you guys retired military or prior military? I would talk to every one of the crew back here. They could tell you stories about their transition plan. Am I right, Bill? He's laughing. Reggie? Hoorah. Betty? She was telling me that she used to lead a combat camera crew, Marine Corps combat camera crew, right? Difficult guys. Can't stand Marines, They're just so hard-headed. Just kidding. You have resources here, and you will find out that there's incredible wealth in every one of their stories. I never miss an opportunity to meet somebody and get their story. In fact, I have a rule. I brought this because I wanted to once again show you from facts. This is probably, I'd say about a month's worth. This is a month's worth of business cards, okay? A month's worth of business cards from everybody, and you could probably see some people there. They're from every ranks or every companies. And what I do is I try to meet people. I make a rule of meeting one new person every day. Today I met a few. I think I'm done for the month. But that's key because you never know. You never know how that's going to play out. We're supposed to be separated by 7 degrees, whether you believe in it or not. I really do believe that when I have somebody who needs a job and I can touch people where I can't employ them and I can affect that, that's an incredibly powerful tool to have. It's an amazing weapon if you want to consider that, because network is the last slide here and the most important one that I'm going to share with you. Before you leave, you should be meeting everyone you touch around you, everyone that comes into your path. The next time you're in the elevator and you don't know that person, it's awkward, obviously. It's like a 20-second, if you're lucky, maybe 5-second ride. What do you say? We always just stare at the number, stare at the wall, look at the feet, because we don't want to let that person think that we're looking at them, because they're going to think, why are you looking at me?
All the cliches. Good morning, thank God it's Friday.
All the cliches, good morning, thank God it's Friday. Try something different. Hi, my name is Cesar. I'll be transitioning in a few months. I just want to make sure. It's awkward. I get it. But you'd be surprised where your greatest opportunity is going to come. It's not going to come from your personal or professional network. It's going to come from that strange phone call that you never expected, or from somebody who spoke about you and they're calling you to say, hey, a point in case. I got a call from a former a former VP of Procter & Gamble. He said, is this Cesar Nader? I was on my way from work. I was going to lunch. I was in my camis. I said, yes, of course. I mean, I was always ready for interviews. I was doing interviews in the parking lot. I was doing interviews on my driveway. Because I was at work, and they wanted to schedule an interview at 9 o'clock. So I had to say, hey, I'm going to go take a break. I go in the parking lot, get in my car, shut the doors, make sure there's no noise, and call. And I'm in my virtual office. And I learned this from from Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. This may sound awkward. Smile when you're talking to somebody on the phone. Just smile. It does send in a different tone than if you're just doing this thing, you're worried about trying to ask the question. So what exactly is the job about? Instead of like, well, I'm very glad to come and talk to you more about it. When can we set up an appointment to meet in person? Or we can do a Skype interview. I did Skype interviews while I was on my way to another interview. I was in Kentucky, and I had an interview, I think it was California, because I had to wake up at 4 in the morning, put on my obviously you get the whole funny thing about the half suit. I was in my half suit, you know, still in boxers, in the hotel room. I set it up so I was on the desk side of the hotel room, right? So it looks like I'm in an office. And I'm telling you the reality check here. This is all just no mask. This is what I did, and this is what you need to think about, because it may happen to you. And I was there doing the Skype interview with 3 managers from this vehicle company, one of the big 3s, that wanted to take me, I think it was Michigan at that time. This was before the bailout. But they went, hey, you're a logistics guy. We want you here. You're prior military. We love these guys. Come on over. I was doing the interview, and then an hour later I had to go do my interview with the other employer. And I was always just ready for the interview piece. My point in all this is I got a call from the VP, former VP of Procter & Gamble, saying, is this Cesar Nader? Yes, this is Cesar Nader. Hi, listen, I was talking to the VP of Gillette over in Boston, and we're both talking about you, but none of us have met you. It was the greatest story ever. 2 VPs trying to get me a job, and I was never in the room, never even met them. To me, that was a compliment to LinkedIn, not myself. I just learned to use this, and I have to thank a friend of mine, John Stanton, who actually got me into LinkedIn, because I always rejected invitations from LinkedIn. I thought, I don't want another Facebook. But all of my contacts today on LinkedIn are very important people that I value, or they believe that I'm important to them, and so they value the connection. And I always accept LinkedIn from fellow service members, because it is just a fraternity. It is a brotherhood, a club, no exceptions to females at all, but just it is a unique club which very few of us are members of, so it is important to share that. I had a gentleman who's in the high ranks say, hey, Cesar, my son is getting out. Can you help me get him a job? No problem. I had an E5. I said, hey, you know, I'm just getting out. I'm out here in the middle of, you know, Ouagadougou, and I'm going to be transitioned back. Can you connect me to people? Excellent, no problem. Don't underestimate the power of the networking tools. Finally, coordinate efforts. Coordinate efforts. There's enough people out there. When you go to TAP, if they don't give you an email address of everybody there, you start it, and you get it, and you talk. And I surely wish that more people that are going to attend the seminar, I know we have a lot of people virtually, that they should start getting their list of contacts and networks. And while you're still in the service, take the time to get your LinkedIn profile done, because that'll be an amazing, powerful thing, because nobody loves more than a service member who has a great curriculum right there. And we'll talk about how transitioning your military experience into LinkedIn. I do a whole day class where we go from start. You come in with your resume and a picture. By the end of the day, you literally get either a job offer or at least a suggestion for a job interview. It is that powerful. Or you can apply to jobs by the end of it, given your experience. If you haven't explored LinkedIn, and there's a help link there, but what I do is I go through the process of building it from scratch, making it effective, what pictures you should put there. You don't want a picture with your dog or you carrying your it's weird, some pictures that you see there. That's not a professional picture. Or people with all kinds of stuff. They look like they're a Mayan king or queen, and it doesn't reflect professionalism. But networking. Coordinate those efforts, and you will be successful. We're going to take a break. Sorry I went a little over. Let's take 10 minutes, And I'll be here for questions if you want to ask something, but please take the time to go to the head. And we'll be back at 1:15. Thank you.